I've never done an open water swim, I've never swam in a wetsuit, and I've never practiced a transition. But last weekend, I did all three of these in my first Olympic distance triathlon in Kiama. The day started early and I got suited up before heading over to transition to drop off my gear and my bike. Thankfully, the rain from the previous day had cleared up, so it was clear blue skies and we were ready to go. So during the race, the swim actually went pretty well. I've never done any real long distance swimming before, especially in open water, and the longest set I'd ever done in my training would have been something like 800 meters. I do have my open water diving license, so maybe I am cheating there a little bit, but I've never actually done a long distance swim in open water without something like a BCD to help me stay afloat. And I did find that having a wetsuit on helped a lot with staying streamlined, so I found myself swimming a lot faster than I usually do. I think I was averaging a pace around 130, 135 or so. My training pace was around 2 minutes. So definitely a bit of a step up. It could have also been the adrenaline keeping me going fast, but I think there is also that contribution from the wetsuit itself. This was also my first time doing a mass start, which is something that you definitely have to experience for yourself. You'll hear a buzzer and everyone will just start swimming forward. Some people might still be walking or running through the water as it might still be shallow, but at some point you just have to take that plunge and go for it. And once we turned the first buoy, there was a lot of brushing and people grabbing at your ankles because everyone's packed so closely together, but then it starts to spread out quite nicely. And from there, you can start to find your rhythm and get into what will be your real swimming pace. So during the swim, I actually found myself just thinking about technique. The water was quite clear, so it wasn't causing a lot of distraction, and I found it quite easy to just think about, here's where I am, this is what I'm doing. I can see how my limbs are moving through the water. You could also see a few rays and fish along the bottom of the riverbed. That was pretty cool. And you can also see the people to your left and right as you're going through your strokes. But it was just focusing on doing those pulls that I'd done 1,000 times during practice and just keeping it moving. And occasionally you just have to pop your head up to make sure that you're heading in the right direction and that you aren't passing any buoys. But usually if you know you're next to other people, you're probably heading in the right direction. So after 21 minutes and 15 seconds, I came out of the water a little bit lightheaded. I'd definitely never gone that fast before. And it was immediately just running off into T1 to figure out where my bike is, get reoriented, throw on the right gear and head out to the cycle. The bike course was definitely pretty hilly. It was not something I would consider flat at all, and it definitely exposed the fact that I didn't have much practice holding aero position off something like a bike trainer. It's pretty much like having training wheels on, because it's more unstable than you think it would be when you're actually taking it out for a spin. I only had a short, maybe like 20-30 minute ride the day before just to test out what it feels like. But beyond that, I hadn't actually gotten much practice in. I would highly recommend spending some time holding aero on a road or flat surface just to make sure you're comfortable with getting in and out of that position and that you're not swerving. Because I did have a few close calls during the race, which I managed to save and avoid running off the road with a little grace under pressure, but it's not something you should be facing. And honestly, if you can avoid it at all costs, would highly recommend. I would say though that because of the amount of hills and how steep they were on the course, it was pretty hard to get into a consistent rhythm as you'd constantly have to jump between both the aero bars and the drop bars. It's probably a good idea to get that practice in and also be ready to make those switches. And it's even harder if there are other people around you, so you should definitely get that practice in. It could save you a lot of potential risk and injury. But after finishing the 38-kilometer cycle in an hour, 13 minutes and 27 seconds, I was heading straight back into T2 for the final leg of the race. And by the time I got to the run, fatigue was starting to set in, so it definitely didn't help that the start is up a massive hill, but we managed to make it. And I will say, this is an extremely hilly run, not flat by any stretch of the imagination. Like, the bike is something, but then the run is really, really hilly. But at least the race is being held in a pretty nice location, so there's a lot of scenic views to enjoy while you're just grinding out those last few kilometers. But definitely those hills will take their toll. And while it wasn't my fastest 10K, I will happily take it. And once you start heading back towards that finish line after your 2 laps, you'll be laughing running down that hill, thinking it's so much better on the way down. And after crossing the finishing line after 53 minutes and 45 seconds, I managed to finish the whole race in 2 hours, 29 minutes and 15 seconds, beating my target time of 2 hours 30, so I'm pretty happy. And while this is a great outcome, I will definitely say that triathlons are logistically way more complicated than something like a marathon and half marathon. It's not as simple as just throwing on a pair of shoes, grabbing some gels, a belt, and putting on a bib. You need to get all of your things ready, laid out, and organized just to go through transition smoothly. It's definitely a headache. I need to figure out what systems will make sense so that I can do something like a Ironman that is not in my city, and I'll keep you posted about that. And additionally, you have to just deal with 2 more disciplines, so yeah. It's hard. Biggest takeaway from the race though is to use something like Body Glide or Vaseline in places like your neck. I had a lot of chafing on my neck. You'll see an image somewhere on the screen. Yeah, it was bad. I probably didn't feel it that much during the race, but afterwards the recovery was pretty painful, and I would say if you can avoid it at all, throw something on to make sure that you can rotate your neck when you're breathing in the water and that it's not chafing because of the wetsuit. It's not a fun experience and you will notice it during the race, but it will definitely feel way worse after. But with 3 races out of the way, it's time to throw in some speed work. Over the last 6 months, I've mainly been focusing on just building that aerobic base so that I can finish events like a marathon and Olympic triathlon, and now I need to start adding in some speed work into the mix so that I can start accelerating and maintaining those higher heart rates more comfortably. During all 3 of the races that I completed over the last 28 days, I found it really hard to sustain those higher heart rates and effort levels. It was just way too draining, way too taxing, and if I did, I would just crash. And frankly, it makes sense. I didn't do any speed work during my training, and I was just doing zone 2. Which was kind of the intention, so it kind of all stacks up. So now my plan is to change that by achieving a sub 25k over the next month or 2. I think it's definitely doable. And while it's really gonna suck sprinting up hills at full speed, I think it'll all be worth it when I hit that target time of 20 minutes to complete a 5k. So if you're also into testing your limits, hit subscribe, and as always, let's keep moving.